we're both going to talk, but I'll just start off by saying, when was Gloria first a spark in one of your minds? How did that, where was that initial spark?
Well, the initial spark eventuated during a period where I was working in New Guinea, and prior to that I had some ideas that maybe I wouldn't mind building a boat one day. And whilst I was in Port Moresby, there was a Herreschoff came in, which was the larger version of one of these, which was a Bounty. That's a 57, we'll deal with feet because they're American design. It was a 57-foot yacht, and it's owned by a French couple and their family. And they sailed in and they had a bit of survey work done there. And I used to work in that survey area with marine operations. And when I saw that boat, I was so enraptured with its beauty and its grace. And so there was another chap and his wife that I was helping out with their boat, and they said, "Oh, that's a Herreschoff, and it's they're wet and they're this and that. You know, they're not as homely as some of the modern boats are." But that didn't matter, because I did see her sailing and she was magnificent, and I thought, maybe one day, who knows, an opportunity might arise.
And what year would that have been?
Oh, that would have been in 1970, probably 1974, 75, something like that.
And then
going back a long time.
How fast do we have to wind forward?
That took quite a few years after that.
20 years.
Yeah.
Or 15 years.
Yes.
Tolly's a spear fisherman. So he has always been a spear fisherman, and an opportunity came up to go abalone diving in Tasmania. And he and a friend who was an accountant thought they could come down here, and for Tolly it was the knowledge and the timber.
Prior to that,
in Tasmania. Go back a bit.
Prior to that, the opportunity to come down fishing here was also already in my mind. Prior to that, I knew already that there were boat builders here that had skills with timber, and some of the timbers are still available at that time. So I thought, we'll take a punt, and I threw my job in one of the mines in central Queensland, and we came down here just on spec, just to try our luck at working for ourselves, which we did anyway. We started working down here and diving down here, and after about 4 or 5 years, I thought, well, if I don't start now, I'll never will. So I approached Wilson Brothers and asked them whether they'd be still interested in building something like this. And they said, Noel Wilson was already getting on in age. He was in his 60s. And so it was Noel and Warren, they were the only two people that were working there. And they said yes, so that they'd be happy for me to work in with them.
And he had to build a pair of sawhorses to prove they're still going.
Yeah. And so from that moment on, I then, once I said that, that they'd be interested in building the boat, I then applied to Massachusetts, which was Earl Francis's head. At that time, Earl Francis's ex-secretary was still alive, Muriel Vaughan, her name was. So I wrote to her and asked her whether I could get some drawings. So that's how it started, really.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and
they arrived in the post.
Yeah, and she responded.
In this box with fountain pen, spidery fountain pen writing on it. We kept the box for years.
It was amazing. Yeah.
And what design number is she? Do you
So
remember?
the design number
63. Right. And
Earl Francis.
the design, does it have a name? The design.
The original boat design was called Mobjack.
This is a Mobjack.
This is a Mobjack.
Okay.
And when we were in Bristol, we went down to Chesapeake Bay, and we went down to Mobjack, and there's nothing there. It's all forestry. So it's
it's a place.
It was named after a place. Yes.
Yeah.
And
for
so
a doctor.
what are the specs on the boat?
Oh, the specs of the boat. Yeah, I'll have to once again refer to feet and inches to be accurate.
Don't worry, we're happy with that.
Yeah.
You're happy with that?
Very
Yeah.
well. We own a 43-foot boat with a 29-foot waterline. I don't know how long it is in meters.
Yeah. Well, okay, she's 45 foot 3 inches on deck, right? And she's got a 12 foot 6 inch beam, only a 5 foot draft, shallow draft, long keel, sort of based traditionally, slightly improved on the schooners that they used to use, and the Grand Banks and all that sort of stuff. She was sort of modified and refined from that type of a profile, underwater profile. and she weighs 38,000 pounds displacement. She's got 7 tonne of lead in her.
Wow.
So she's a heavy displacement boat.
Bit of a sort of left of centre question, but I know when Philip Meyer had his motorboat built, the Nilma G at Wilson's, and I know that's far more recently.
Yes.
There was a sort of, in the community, a little bit of a sort of raising of eyebrows about why would you build an American boat in Tasmania when there's so many great Tasmanian designs, you know, and here he is building this lobster boat when, you know, there's...
We endured decades of thinly veiled cynicism. Don't record that. But you know, like everybody used to come in and sort of, you know, why is he building it? There's nobody was building wooden boats anymore. Sort of, you know, why wouldn't you build fiberglass? Why don't you build something that goes fast?
Or even if you was a wooden boat, why wouldn't you build a Jockmuir design?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
And so I bit the bullet, and I once I got the drawings. If you want to go back to that, then I started trying to source timber, of course, prior to beginning, and Noel Wilson, who was the proprietor of Wilson Brothers, that he was the last of 3 brothers that used to be boat builders. The others already were older and they passed away. And they told me some of the people they could still supply, so I approached them, which was on the west coast of Tasmania, as you can imagine, towards Queenstown. And then I took in big order, and I showed them the sort of boat that I wanted to build. And I said, I'd like to be able to get really good quality timbers for that. Is it, can you do it? And they said, yes, we can, but you might have to wait from time to time to be able to acquire what you really want. And so that's how it started.
So
And,
tell us
and what was it that
And
you really
that was
wanted?
King William Pine, which is King Billy they call it. King Billy Pine for the coal moulding of the shell, the hull, and he supplied the King Billy, and there's a fellow called Bradshaw actually. He supplied the
He's
King
still
Billy
alive.
and the Huon Pine, and they used to cut that there. And at that point in time, when they cut the King Billy, that was the last bit of King Billy that was cut from the forest, because they closed all those areas down to preserve them.
These are the most flawless planks, 2 planks each
Full
side.
length.
Yeah,
Full length,
so
flawless, the last
they're
green.
the King Billy planks in there, as you can see them.
Mm.
And so we laid it up traditionally like a carvel boat to make it look like a carvel boat inside, rather than starting with cross diagonals.
So you're seeing the lines.
So when you're looking at it, it looks like a carvel boat. So we laid carvel planking, and then 2 cross diagonals, and then the final planking is strip planking on the outside of that. So it's all cross grained over itself to give it, integrity and strength.
Each layer faired.
Yeah, a lot of fairing in between it to get it so that the profile and the hull was fair and clean.
Does that mean the ribs could be slightly further apart because it's such a strong?
Well, yeah, they could have been.
shell?
Yeah, they could have been, but no.
You like
we
No.
decided to
No,
go.
no. He decided to make it even harder. He built it to Lloyd's.
So we wanted to build a hull to standard to Lloyd's. So they stipulated that we need to maintain that sort of integrity to it. And so how we still use the ribs as Herreschoff had drawn them, which is about 12 inches apart. But his were only just cut ribs, where these are all laminated. So that means you add about another 30% extra strength to the ribs compared to cut ribs. There's no short grain, it's a full length grain following the profile. So that's how we did it, yes. For coal moulding, it's much easier to glue everything up if she's upside down.
Better shape.
You can't. It's very difficult to glue things
And
up.
so at what
the right way.
stage do you flip?
After the moulds were put inside it, we had moulds inside, and then we built the ribs and everything else upright, and then we planked it completely, and then we flipped her after she was planked, and I guess when I consider it now, she was about probably about only a couple of ton, because there's nothing else except timber and a few and bolts and screws and glue.
With lots of talcum powder.
So
On the
while she was upside down, we the hull was sheet with glass as well to protect the king building, which is soft.
Yeah.
So there's 6-ounce cloth there with multiple coats of epoxy to really glue it on and seal it. So yeah, she was already primed with paint at the same time. Well, the hull was primed with a heavy duty industrial paint while it was upside down, and after that we rolled it over. So look, it took about 2 days of worrying, stressing over it, how we're going to do it, and we rolled it over in about 15 minutes with a couple of come-alongs and some web belts with a bit of talcum powder on them.
And does the mould have to be destroyed after you've...
Yeah, the moulds, they were just plywood moulds that kept it together.
Yeah.
But this is before we put the ribs in to give it
I
get
used
a right
to burn
shape.
everything in the winter for warmth.
It was freezing cold.
44-gallon drums going.
And how long did the build take?
Altogether, almost 20 years from the time we started.
18 years in the shed.
It was all the fit out inside.
And
that took a
then
long
5
time.
or 6 years for the masts.
Where did that patience come from?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a difficult one. I was very passionate about building it, so I just kept driving myself, and I love doing it. So.
And building it to a standard. That was, he never ever compromised in standard, and that was a really hard thing for people to understand.
So what actually happened is...
But Noel and Warren were very happy to build the best boat the Wilson brothers could build.
You can see the joinery work in it. It's extraordinary.
What about all the fittings, all the bronze fittings?
Yes.
Are they sourced or made?
No. I had to get patterns. I made some patterns, and the rest were made by professional pattern makers, and it was all cast here.
So all the hatch brackets.
We made all that.
InCat, there are some really good people here.
And when you buy the designs for the hull, does that come with an interior design as well?
Just a rough interior design.
Herreschoff is famous for scanty drawings.
Very.
And having been to Bristol, we now understand it's because that's the way they built boats.
So you were talking before, Josephine, about wanting this open, airy, open plan feel.
Yeah. Yes.
Tell us about that.
I can tell you about that, yes. On the original boat, as you came down through the companionway, which was on the opposite side to where this one is, you would go down straight into the saloon area. So you had a table there and a couple of settees that you could convert to bunks, and that was the saloon area. Then you had a head compartment on amidships in the boat. On the opposite side was the galley and the galley stove. So that took up all this space here, and he had a very sumptuous, just a cabin for 2 people. We've got a forward V berth, as you can see there, but his cabin would have ended just where the front of the cabin ends before it terminates to the mast. And he had he partitioned with doors, so it's all closed in because they're in a cold climate. And so we decided that we would like to open it up and bring the galley further aft, so it's a bit easier to converse with whoever's in the cockpit, or
which I absolutely
pass
love.
things out.
Cups
Yeah,
of
I was going
tea.
to say, that's the first thing
I
I
mean,
think of is,
Yeah.
you know, imagine having to make a cup of tea
Yeah,
down here
yeah.
and then run through the boat like you say.
Well, also, it's a constant thing on Fairwinds. If you're in the galley preparing, you don't want to feel like you're missing out on the conversation.
Or you need need a hand. You know, all hands on deck. Yep.
On some of the boats, the galley was right up in the forepeak with a hatch.
So we're sitting in this absolutely, it's exquisite. The light.
The light is
The
beautiful.
light
The
is
light,
so soft and gentle, and these brass fittings.
Yeah.
And the head height is incredible.
And all the brass fittings you see, this is before the internet. So we were intensely envious of Craig when he got like all his spruce for his masts. He did it on the internet.
Yeah.
He used to write letters
We didn't have that option.
and go down to the post box, the phone box in Signet and put, coins in. And
Before mobile phones.
Before mobile phones.
So when you were thinking about the open plan nature of down below in this boat, there was a need for you to interpret a Herreschoff way, because you don't want to sort of have one experience on deck and then another below. So what research did you undertake, or what thinking did you do?
Well, actually, I had a marine architect, because to build a hull to Lloyd's and have specifications, you have to deploy an architect. You can't just do it from yourself privately. So I had a marine architect from Melbourne, and
Michael
Rickard Bell, and he altered the drawings to suit it so that the Lloyd's knew how we're going to build it. So they knew where the bulkheads are going to be, hanging knees, lodging knees, all that. So
and there was a lovely old book he used a lot, which was famous yacht interiors, traditional interiors.
Yeah.
So it was like marine archaeology, because Herreschoff's plans are so,
pretty spartan,
light on,
very spartan.
and so and it was before the internet, so it was the Wooden Boat magazine and books, and we just we'd had a magnifying glass and we'd be looking for details.
Yes, it was.
It
was a journey. Let's just say that.
Well, that's sort of where I was going to come to. It's sort of what I've been thinking about the last few days, talking to people and moving around the festival, is that the boats are really, in a way, just a vehicle for stories and for communities and people.
Possibly,
a really good way for stories to be told is through boats. And when you look at some of the older boats down here, like the little Maori Lass down here, which is a scruffy old boat, but you look at it and you think, this went around the world, with a couple on it, and you think of and their stories sort of being told. Do you feel like you've created this thing almost like I imagine it like almost like a canvas for the story to keep being told on? What's your sort of, do you feel like you've given the world this beautiful thing? I see it like that.
He's very shy.
No,
and he didn't build it for other people. Tolly finds it hard to come here and receive the attention. Whereas I'm out the back there going, blah, 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 blah. But
you make up for
Tolly, yeah, I know, sweetheart. So a bit of background. Tolly is the son of immigrants from Ukraine. He arrived here when he was 2 years old, and never got to go to university, and of course would have been a aeronautical engineer if he had, and had to support his mother after his father died, and this has been his university.
Yeah, it was.
This was his
huge learning
education.
process. Yeah.
And I'm immensely proud of him for that.
To really give you an insight of what inspires you is that I'm a creative. I've always been a creative person. I love working with my hands and creating things and artistic things. So I guess the beauty of the boat was what inspired me. The balance of everything, and I think that's what it was, because based on sound, fast traditions, it was designed on that, and they've got beautiful grace about them and looks about them, and just the feel of the boat and everything else, and being aboard. It's not like being in a modern boat, of course, as you can tell.
What was that feeling of the day you launched?
It was pretty.
Boat?
It was pretty.
I'm emotional now.
It was pretty exciting when we launched the boat. I can tell you, after all those years.
At Wilson's.
Yeah. Well, there was no slipway. It was just a little concrete ramp.
Had to build it.
And the shed, as you've seen the shed, I think you've been there. You saw the big old shed.
Yeah.
It sat just almost on the waterway.
Yeah.
And over the years, that the bay had silted up pretty badly, and it was very muddy and silty. So when we went to launch it, we had to actually build a cradle and a slipway out of timber.
In winter.
In the middle of winter, and I had to float the slipway out on a snorkel and wetsuit
and concrete pads
and
to
lay
level
it down.
So this really isn't a boat. This is a child.
Yeah. It's a creation sort of thing.
How do you pass the custodianship on?
I don't know. Yeah,